Hi everyone, welcome to Journey with V, the channel where I document my life and talk about things that I go through, talk about the challenges that I have just going through life, or the challenges that I may face in life, business, lifestyle, travel, parenting, and anything else that isn't in one of those boxes that I have been through or have experienced. So as you can see from this beautiful background, I am currently in Spain on holiday with my children, and other members of the family. It's lovely. I must say the weather isn't what I expected. So when we booked to come, I actually thought that we were going to have nice warm weather, but I miscalculated that. However, talking to other people in the resort that we're in, and finding out what their experiences have been, there's someone who's been coming here for the last 4 years, and what they shared was this is the worst weather they've had at the beginning of April ever since they started coming here. In the past, when they visited, the weather has actually been much better. So my names are Violet. I love to vlog. A mom to 3 kids, a wife, and a sister, as well as a businesswoman. So today I wanted to talk to you about fear. You know, some people say, or it is alleged that fear is what you would call false evidence appearing real. I'm not so sure whether it's actually false evidence appearing real, because if you don't face into it, then is it false evidence appearing real? So in my, I would say, younger days, yes, I would have said it's false evidence appearing real. But I guess maybe as you get older and life affects you and life hits you in so many different ways, it kind of makes you question that analogy. But today I wanted to talk to you about the fear that I experienced whilst on this holiday, the journey through preparing for this holiday. So we've been here before. We came here in 2019 as a family. When we came, my husband drove, and it was such an amazing holiday. We hired a car, he drove, we went to Gibraltar, we drove. So we flew into Malaga and we drove into where we were living, which is a resort somewhere on the, I would say, I don't know whether you call them mountains. I don't actually know if these are mountains or hills. I was actually trying to Google it today just to see if it's a mountain or a hill. But the long and the short of it is we came here during the summer. The weather was good. It was one of our best family holidays. I would definitely recommend this place. And yes, I would recommend Spain. Even though in the past I wouldn't recommend Spain. Why? Because I just think too many Brits travel to Spain. I don't like going where there are too many people that go on holiday. But I would definitely recommend this place. The resort that we're at is mainly German and French people that visit. I actually like that, because that means we don't have to eat fish and chips every single day. You can adventure with the food. Anyway, so as I was saying, in 2019 when we visited, my husband drove. So we hired a car and he drove. The experience of hiring a car is another conversation for another day. So this time around, we booked the holiday well in advance. We paid for the holiday. However, because I was just so busy with life, and many of you will know and acknowledge that in a marriage, there's always someone that's better at doing the paperwork or preparing for traveling than the other person. A very good example, I laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny then, was when the family was going on holiday last July. We were not able to get the visas until very late. We attended the airport to try and see if we could get boarded, and we were turned away. But anyway, so this time around, unfortunately, because I was so busy with life, or maybe I should say I didn't prioritize, or maybe I thought my husband would process his own visa. Wishful thinking. The visa wasn't processed on time. By the time I went to try and apply for the visa, on the site it kept saying that we needed at least 15 days to make the visa application. I managed to call through, and the lady said to me, unfortunately, we cannot speed the visas through. You need 14 days to apply for the visa. So first and foremost, I was upset and mad because I started getting anxious and like, what are we going to do? Do we have to cancel our holiday? How are we going to get there? I started thinking about all the expenses that would be involved in traveling to our final destination and traveling around or making the trip more interesting just by using Ubers and public transport. It just wasn't going to be feasible. Not only that, I started thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm going on holiday on my own with 3 kids, my nephew who's 4 and my own children. I was like, how are we going to travel around? Anyway, so I tried. This is the funny bit is I tried to apply for Polish visa. I tried to apply for a French visa because we're meant to be going to France at some point this year with my husband. So I tried applying for that. Well, with the Polish visa, that's another story for another day because it kept rejecting the application because you had to fill it in within a certain period of time. That kept getting rejected. And then with the French visa, I don't know what happened, but my husband tried to apply for that, but he wasn't successful as well. We tried to apply for so many visas, Slovenian visas. In the end, I just said to myself, you know what? Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe he wasn't meant to travel, to come with us this time around. But to be fair, I think saying maybe it wasn't meant to be is just an excuse of actually poor planning. I do think if we had planned better, then he would have come, but we were not very good at the planning. We left it a little too late to put in an application for a visa. So, and this is the advice I'm going to give anyone that's trying to apply for a Schengen visa. Try and put your visa in on time. I think it's 3 months. You have to apply at least 3 months before you're meant to be leaving because you do not know what delays you may face. So, I finally had to face the realization that I was possibly or potentially going to be traveling on my own with these kids, with our kids, I had 2 choices. Cancel the holiday, which would have involved cost. I don't know how much. I don't know how much we would have had to cancel. It would have cost to rebook. But then also, on the other hand, I was thinking about other things. I was thinking about the fact that it was coming to the summer holidays. Canceling the holiday wouldn't give us enough time to plan for our summer holidays because usually around the summer, our preference is, for the kids to go abroad so that it gives us the opportunity to work. Anyway, so I finally came to the realization that I may have to travel on my own. And the fear kicked in. Now, many of you will know that I'm a believer. I'm a Christian and I'm proud of it. I know I've had my challenges with my journey, with my faith. There are times when you just feel like you're so overwhelmed by everything that's going on. This year has been tough in itself, but the fear kicked in and I was scared. Why was I scared? I'm afraid of heights. I really am afraid of heights. And if I remember the journey the last time that we had traveled, I remember us having to go through very high bridges. And I'm sure you can see the background behind me. I'm going to try and do a visual shot of the area that we're in. And I just kept thinking about driving up all these hills. And in my head, I just had this picture that the roads at the sides did not have barriers, then also driving at the side of the sea, because the last time when we arrived at night, and all I remember was on the sat nav, it said we were driving close to the sea. I can't remember if I saw any barriers. Interestingly, I could not remember whether I had seen any barriers going back on our journey back to Malaga, but to Malaga airport. But all I could imagine in my mind, I had got myself wound up by the fact that I was going to have to drive, because to be honest, that was the most cost effective. I could not picture the fact that I was going to hire what do you call them? These transport, what do you call these a transport service from the airport to the resort, and then a transport service from the resort back. And then also because we were split up. Why? Because some of the kids take their holidays early at the beginning of April, and then the other child, one of my eldest sons, he has his holiday later. So we were doing 2 trips. So I was going to come with my 2 children and my nephew, and then the other party was going to come with my older son. So having to do those trips just wouldn't work out cost effective. And yet, to be honest, the reason as to why we usually take a European holiday in over the Easter period is because it's more cost effective and it's nice to get a cheaper break, a cheap, relaxing break. So I had to confront the fact that I was going to drive over these hills and mountains. The other thing that I had to confront was the fact that I was going to be driving on what I alleged to be the wrong side of the road. But I'm sure the Spanish and all the other people that drive on the right side of the road, I don't even know if it's the right side or the left side. You can correct me. I'm sure they would also say that the Brits drive on the wrong side of the road. Anyway, so I brought myself to this realization that I was going to have to drive. Now, what I did, instead of booking a car, like paying for the car whilst I was in London, I did a lot of research. Because, as I said earlier, when we were booking the car the last time that we came, I booked the car, because I was the one that was planning for the holiday. I booked the car. I paid it with my credit card. Why? Because people were talking about the fact that, the Spanish car hire companies have a lot of fees that they add on to your booking, and sometimes you end up paying for things that you haven't necessarily used, or incurring costs that you hadn't planned for. So what I decided to do was book with my credit card. However, when we got here, this is the first time I'm talking about 2019. When we got here, I was told that because my husband was the one driving the car, it had to be with his credit card. So we were told either we had to pay insurance, I can't remember how much it was then, but I know it was quite a lot of money, or leave a deposit on the credit card of £1,200. Now, we at the time, we felt that paying that insurance money us leaving the deposit would work out better than us paying the insurance money. So anyway, long and the short of it is, we left a deposit of 1,200. We got to hire the car, and I think we actually had to buy insurance as well, because they were not accepting our insurance. So we had to buy separate insurance, on top of the 1,200. So what I did this time around, because I wasn't very confident, because I wasn't sure about whether I would be driving the car or not, and after doing my research, rather than book from a third-party company like, let's say, Ryanair, Cars, or, on the holiday page for the company that we used, I decided to actually book directly with the company. Now, the good thing about booking directly with the company was the fact that I pre-booked. So I never paid any money. They didn't take any card details. I was able to pre-select the car that I was using. Now, the company that I used was Alamo, a very good company, I'll say, for now. So I pre-booked with them. I didn't pay anything. So the day came, I kind of got myself to start getting into holiday mode after winding myself up and getting really anxious about this holiday. I got myself, into the holiday spirit. We boarded our flights very early in the morning. At around 5, we left home at 5. We got to the airport for 5:30. We checked in. We flew over. The flight was smooth. I like Jet2. I definitely recommend Jet2. If you're to compare flights, Jet2 is far much better than Ryanair, in my opinion, anyway. So anyway, we arrived here. We checked out. I went and got some foreign currency, and I walked over. So I asked some people to direct me. It wasn't very far. We walked out around the car park area. The station was on the right hand side, and we took the Cutsi van. There was a Cutsi van ready to pick us up from the airport. It took us to the car hire company. It was easy. The man that picked us up was really helpful. We went. I gave them my reservation. They found the car. I think she said the car wasn't ready, but they gave us an upgrade, and I was glad about that. So after giving us the upgrade, they said the upgrade was free. So I then said to her, okay, so now do I start, how much is it going to cost? And she's like, no, we need to wait until the car's ready. So they gave us an upgrade. They gave us a Volvo XC40. I actually like it. So I drive a Volvo. I love my Volvos, but they gave us a Volvo XC40, brand new, and she started adding up the costs. Now, when I pre-booked my car for the number of days that we were going for, it added up to about £330, without any of the other bits that they added onto my booking. I can see the sun. I'm hoping you guys can see me, and I'm hoping that my video is really good because I can see the sun has come out. Anyway, we'll carry on. So she then starts adding up the expenses. She starts adding up what the total will be, and this total comes up to about 900 and something euros. And I'm like, that's way too much. What exactly has it added up to? So she showed me the original booking, and her booking was not the same as mine. So I showed her the price that I had pre-booked with. So she adjusted that. She went to a manager and adjusted that. She also showed me, she also had added breakdown cover. So I said, why do I really need breakdown cover? I told her, can you please remove the breakdown cover? So she removed that. So the costs came down. It came down to a lot less. I can't remember. I think it was about, I'd say, for the number of days, obviously, that we were here for, it came up to about 700 and something euros. So I don't know how much that is in pounds. I need to look at that. I know this is not financially wise, but the long and the short of it is, I got the car. I got into the car, put on the sat nav. Thankfully, the sat nav was in English, and the sat nav, unfortunately, took us through. Fortunately and unfortunately, it took us through the scenic route, which is the A7, and it took us through the tolls. The tolls were not an issue. It was the heights. The heights, if I took my glasses on, you'd see my eyes. The heights, oh my God. We drove through these, I don't know if it's mountains. Genuinely, I do not know if it's mountains or hills, but some of you will correct me, those of you that have been to Spain. We drove for an hour. Our journey was meant to last about an hour 15. It lasted about an hour 25 minutes. Oh my God, when I joined, first of all, I first took a few minutes just to kind of let me rewind just a little bit. So when we got into the taxi van from the airport, what I did, the kids were so funny. The kids were like, mommy, look at the way the man's driving so that you can know how to drive, when you get into the car. So I looked at how he was driving, and I looked at which side of the road he was on, but also I'd watched some videos as well. So I do hold a full driving license. I don't want you guys thinking that I don't hold a full. I do hold a full driving license, but I was just afraid of, because it's driving on the different side of the road. So when I got to the taxi car and I got into the car, I took the time to actually drive shorter distances and get off the main road, just to try and get myself acquainted to which side of the road that I was driving on. So traveling to our destination, which is near Gibraltar. So our hotel's near Gibraltar. The sat-nav took us to the hills, the mountains, the tunnels, all the things that I'm afraid of. We drove and drove and drove. I was so anxious. When I'm anxious, I don't want anyone talking. I don't want any music. The kids wanted to watch YouTube. Thankfully, the YouTube wasn't working. The long and the short of it is, we drove 20 minutes, left with just 20 minutes. I then relaxed and felt a little bit more comfortable. I felt that when I was driving through the small roads, I was actually more comfortable than, when I had just started at the beginning. I was driving on the middle lane, or the very, I'd say, the left-hand side of the lane. Obviously, then what I didn't know is that in Spain, the slower lane is the right-hand side of the lane. So I moved over to the right-hand side, and the journey was smooth thereafter. Obviously, the hills and mountains, I was a bit anxious of them because I just kept thinking, how high is this going to go? I tried not to look down. Now, why am I sharing this? I'm not sharing this just to boast about my holidays. I'm just sharing this because I then had to drive back to pick up the other members of family a day after I had driven to our hotel. And I picked them up, and the person that I picked up said to me, "My God, Violet, I would like to be your holiday companion. You can drive in any country, you know." And I just thought, it's really funny because when that person said that, they did not know or could not comprehend the anxiety and fear that I was going through. But what I've learned, going through life is I've learned that I face fear, a lot of fear. But sometimes I'm faced with situations where I don't think there's any situation where you feel you have no choice. But I think the reason as to why, in some cases, in most cases, I've succeeded through life is because I face situations where sometimes I feel I have no choice and I just have to face that situation head on, So I'm grateful. I've now been able, I've driven. So on our way back, when I had picked up this party of people that I had gone to pick up with my eldest son, we drove the scenic route by the sea. So I was able to conquer that as well. So what is the moral of what I'm trying to say? To anyone out there, if you're afraid of something, if you're afraid of anything, just first of all, acknowledge the fear. I do think you need to acknowledge the fear and then work out steps of how you think you can conquer that fear. Because this fear of heights, this fear of driving by the sea, this fear of driving by roads that do not have barriers had stopped me from actually, first of all, enjoying the fact that I was going away on a 2 week break that I really deserved because I've been so exhausted, burnt out, and tired. But when I acknowledged that I had that fear and decided that, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway, nothing's going to stop me. And I thank God for His grace because, oh my God, I prayed through it. I prayed through my journey and He was there with me. I prayed through it. Sometimes I went through tunnels that I felt were too long and I was like, Lord, help me. Sometimes I went through roads that were too windy, too steep, down. You could see it. And I just prayed and said, Lord, I can do this. And He helped me. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my faith. And I believe the reason as to why I'm able to conquer these things is also because I have faith. I have faith that God is with me. He'll walk with me no matter what. And yes, I'll go through difficult and challenging times, but God will see me through. And the thing about fear, if you don't face it, you'll never know if you're actually strong enough to go through whatever it is you wanted to go through. You'll never know. You'll never know. You'll never see what's on the other side because, I would have always I would have stayed there if I hadn't faced that fear of driving in another country, especially in Spain. I would have always felt that in order for me to go and enjoy Spain, I needed to go with my husband. And I just don't think that's the way to live life. You cannot just always live life relying on other people. So I'm grateful I can drive in Spain. It's even got me thinking that maybe what I'm going to do is actually book a holiday on my own and actually book a car from the airport and go wherever I want to go. I feel so relieved. I feel like I've conquered a lot. So yes, so that's my journey coming through the fear of heights. I cannot say I've conquered it 100%, but I think I've done well. The next thing I want to do is actually go to Italy. Go to Italy and drive in Italy. But let's see how that goes because Italy has some very high, steep, windy roads, especially, around the Bologna region where I have been with my family.